Hello and welcome. I'm Dan Ballard. Thank you for dropping in. My vision on this podcast is to provide you deep insight in a digestible way so you get condensed practical wisdom and knowledge that you can apply in the real world to help you grow. I'm a personal growth mentor with 12 years of professional results, helping you master your emotions and energy and feel confident so you prosper. Welcome to this episode. I hope you share and enjoy. Welcome everybody. This podcast today I think it's going to be a great opportunity for me to introduce to you a good friend of mine, but he's also a friend that we have a lot of very aligned viewpoints. I'd say we're both in similar spaces, but very different. Ryan's background, also Ryan's foundations that he has built make this podcast a very, very great opportunity for listeners to really gauge the economic times we're in right now, or to better map these economic times that we're in right now. We're going to go and traverse all things to do with the intelligence of money, so money IQ, but also money EQ, which is the emotional side of money, but not just money, our time, our energy, and also our money. Encompassing in that, there is a whole plethora of strategy. There is a whole plethora of ideas, perspectives. Ultimately, what I want to do today is I want to really use this time wisely to talk about the economic times we're in, to talk about opportunity, but to really help listeners better gauge the differentiation between strategy, IQ, and no pun intended, Tristan. Well played, pun intended. And also the emotional side of money. There's something that I say, and when I mentor people, I say your IQ gets your foot in the door, but your EQ determines how far you're going to go. And when we think about all domains of life, not just our time, energy, and money, I really think that understanding is going to be bridged today, and I'd really like to focus on that. So with all that being said, I warmly welcome my friend and my guest, Ryan Bultitude.
I'm waiting for the round of applause. Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited. This is going to be fun.
Welcome, and welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, my friend. And welcome back. We did a podcast about a year and a half ago now, 2021.
Yeah, right in the midst of
right in the midst of the nonsense
pandemic.
Yeah, and it was reflecting on it. We went for a walk just recently, and we reflected on it, and so much has changed since then. In the physical world, but also economically. And I think also for both of us as well too, there's been an evolution, and that's why we're coming back together for you. And that's really, I guess, the underpinning thing here is how can we help people? And, what do we have to offer that is maybe nuanced, something that hasn't been discussed or we can shed more light on, but also offer unique perspective. So just a bit of a background with Ryan. I'll introduce him really softly, and in this podcast, we let things organically flow. It's more of a conversation than it is a structured interview or anything like that. So that's just what we do here on this podcast, and that's what we really value. So we're going to connect to that. But just to give you some background, Ryan is a financial planner. He's a tax accountant. He is a wealth coach. He runs multiple businesses very successfully, and he also is building himself a very healthy portfolio in the property game. So it isn't just about listen to what I have to say. It's let me show you something. And I really love that. I really love that there's a show don't tell type thing attached to this interview today. There is many different ways that we can build wealth. We can understand wealth and also create more time freedom that ultimately influences our energy. And that is good. When we have things well ordered, life becomes much easier. So with that being said, is there anything I missed?
No, that was beautifully framed up, mate. I'm happy to be here. You have come leaps and bounds, my friend. This is going to be great.
Beautifully said. I'll slip right at 50 under the table after that.
Look, yeah, anything I do moving forward, whether it's any stage presenting or anything, you'll be definitely doing the introductions.
Okay.
Thanks, mate. I'm chuffed.
Okay. That's my new gig, introduction guy.
Do it beautifully.
All right. Ryan, let's bring listeners in. What is one of your arms of what you do is StrategiQ.
Yes.
Okay, which is the tax game, the wealth building game, the financial planning. So let's open up about the intelligence of money IQ. Okay. What encompasses money IQ? What does that involve, and what is the spectrum of the work you do in that space?
Yeah. So I suppose when we were having that conversation this morning around IQ and where IQ starts, it usually starts in school and then it goes to university, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where you get your IQ. And if you go and work with us or work with our firm, a lot of our accountants, advisors, et cetera, they've all been trained to develop that IQ in money literacy and understanding like how to help the client. So I think IQ for me, whether it's in the strategic business that we run or the elite builder business that we run or any of the businesses that we run that have a finance base, if you like, IQ comes through the schooling system in the beginning and then it goes through university, especially if you become an accountant or you become a financial advisor, because you learn the tactics and the strategies and the like. But like you said, when you started the conversation and the frame up of this session, there's something that underpins the potential of any money IQ, which is the EQ. It's the emotional intelligence that backs the IQ. So IQ is how to do things and how to do things effectively, simply. So how to buy property simply, how to have property structured tax effectively, how to put your money into buckets so you don't go spending it on the wrong things. There's a large amount of IQ strategy, just financial things that you should do and you shouldn't do, and how to get ahead. And I suppose where I want to start is that a lot of those IQ strategies are simple. You know, when we came in to hear this podcast setup that you've got, that's amazing. You said, look, I learnt to do it myself and I learned to master it, and it wasn't rocket science. It took a little bit of energy. And that's how I want to open this, is financial IQ and financial strategy is very simple principles, universal principles that have been around for hundreds of years. And accountants, yes, are trained on them, but they're very easy to learn as well.
And that's a beautiful way to segue and to start this, because you know, at the end of the day, a lot of people are, I feel, obviously in my work, it involves the aspect of wealth, of finance. I don't give any advice. I'm not like you. I'm not in that space, in that domain, but it does come up. And so much of what I learn is there are certain people who have financial literacy and there are certain people that don't. There's this like real sense of, a lot of people sweep a lot of things under the rug, right? Especially when it comes to finance. And I'm talking from experience. I've always had a really good, I'd say, relationship with saving money, but there came a point in my life where you're actually on seeing that there when I had someone break in and steal, $50,000 in cash off me. It really hit me, but it also really hit me in a really good way. That day I kind of laughed about it and I chose to learn from it, and that's more of an emotional thing. But I also, why I'm sharing that backstory is because that's actually how we connected. I was looking to understand a bit more around financial literacy for myself. Even though having a good money mindset previously, before connecting with you, there is a level of understanding that is required, but it's actually not overwhelming. And that's the thing I really want to preface this conversation with. It's not as overwhelming as what it seems, but our relationships that we have to money, and even just being able to talk about it, it creates a sense of, it brings up resistance in people very, very easily. And what is that resistance about? What is that resistance really about? When money comes to the table, we talk about money. It evokes certain sensations in the body. It makes us feel certain things. It might create a spiral of thought, and you'll often find that it's quite negative. There's a negative connotation attached to it, or there's something inherently bad about it. And the funny thing is, I've got this saying that money listens. This is something I teach. Money listens, and actually has a viewpoint of you. One of the exercises that I do, I won't release it because it's actually something I do and try and keep close to my chest because I use it quite frequently, is we actually have a dialogue with money, and money has a viewpoint of you. And that's what I learned in that hard time, is when that money really, that sum of money that I had, it parted ways with me. It was taken from me. What I realized is nothing changed in my life. At the time it was a significant amount of money, but nothing changed. In fact, life actually got better. So that was the first real deep learning I had, and a painful experience that I had that taught me that money wants to flow. Things want to move. Obviously, it moved away from me. And why did it move away from me? I learned a couple of months later that I inherently had this fear and this lack of security in myself. And I was like, of course, that's why I was storing that sum of that money wasn't working for me. It's just a large sum of cash that I held. And it's funny because the conversation that we were having, and the reason why I called Ryan to my life, is I wanted to better learn how to leverage the money I had to grow wealth. So this is the backstory of how Ryan and I really connected, and I think that's where we're going to really help bridge the gap between the strategy of money, but also the emotional intelligence of money.
And I might just jump in there, because before you said the word fear, that's what I was thinking just then as I was listening to your words. And I think it's almost like what's the best word for this? When you're really stuck and there's it's a predicament. That's the word I'm looking for. It's a predicament. So the predicament is that money means so much to all of us. And that's where this emotion and this feeling comes from that you mentioned before, because we sit there and our protection of self, our protection of family, our protection of family, our mums and dads, our wives, our kids, everything.
Our sense of self too. A lot of people derive their sense of self from money.
Professionalism, success, it's all premised on wealth. And so the reason we almost run from the IQ, or run from the financial literacy, or run from the education, or run from any of it, is because there's so much scare and fear attached to the actual money. So as an example, right, I'll go to your example, even my example, right? I go through times in my life, even though I'm financially literate and I've been educated on numbers, where I feel fear. So I will sit there, and for example, right now, I've invested big on my business. I've brought in some amazing talent to help me to lead and grow and run the business. And when you invest in anything, you have to put some money into something, and your current financial circumstances aren't what they once were. So it's very like, it's close, and it's fearful, and it's scary. And sometimes I have times where you feel the emotions and you feel the worry, and you don't want to address it. You don't want to look at the financial strategy or the financial IQ or the tactics or the things you're going to do, because you're in that state of emotion. And so that's when the EQ is so important, just like it was in your circumstance, because you had this attachment to money, you lost the money, there was fear, there was scare, you didn't know what to do with it. But if you can have an equilibrium point between the IQ and the EQ, where you feel, no, I'm going to keep investing in simple financial knowledge so I can make good decisions based on principles that have been here forever. And I'm also going to work on my own temperament and my own fear and my own limitations around money, so I can keep that on a level playing field as well, then you've got the best chance to continue to move forward. And so that's something I talk a lot about with my business partners, is that yes, when you invest big money into property, or you invest big money into business, or whatever you do, if it is somewhat calculated and there is financial strategy behind it, and you can keep yourself sane and thinking bigger and thinking outside the box and keeping your emotions in check, right? Because there's method to it and there is financial strategy to it, you can continue to attract better positions.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we're together. There is, people might have the best strategy. You might have the $1 million strategy. How often do we see this in the business coaching space, right? You're a business coach. I'm a personal growth mentor. There are so many people that like to sell the strategy. Here's the 7-figure strategy. If you don't have the confidence, the self-worth, and the EQ, not only are you going to miss the mark with that strategy, money's going to run away from you. You're not going to be able to keep it. Somewhere down the line, there's going to be a disconnect in the system. And the system actually starts with you. Like, you are the system. You want a better business? We need to build the self behind it. We need to do the driver of that. And money, in a way, it does reflect our innermost state. Of course, a big part of how I think we can help people. A lot of people are feeling this, and this is actually a common thread that I'm noticing as I serve my clients, is that there are two types of people in these times. We're coming through a bit of a downturn in the economic situation right now, and when we go through these downturns, there are two types of people that really exist, and you can challenge me on this. I think there's two types of people. There are those who see the fear, doubt, insecurity, and life, and I'm not saying it's not hard, but all they see is an overwhelm. It's too overwhelming to look at. So I'll sweep everything under the rug. I'll keep spending, or I'll tighten things up, and it's like a constant state of stress, restriction, and then open this and stress. It becomes this vicious cycle of anxiety almost. They're like echoes from left to right in the head, and it comes down to feeling like you are helpless, that you don't have skill. But like I've just said, you can develop that skill, and it's not that hard to do. It just requires you to get over the emotional side of money. And that's why money EQ and money IQ are so closely correlated. We wanted to talk about it because if you don't challenge those inbuilt narratives that are often rooted in the past, for most of us, our childhood was quite turbulent. We had challenges. We learned how to cope with the environment, not thrive in the environment. Money's linked to those stories. And the deeper we go into our nature, the deeper we go into our character and understand our flaws, our limitations, our certain traits, beliefs, and tendencies we have, if we don't study those, then they actually become our prison. And it makes it very, very hard not only to build wealth, but to also keep wealth. Would you agree?
I couldn't agree with you more. Like I know we're podcasting, right? But it's making my hairs stand up, and you can probably tell by my demeanor right now. Like, it's a bit, because that was my story, mate. Like that was my honest story, and that's why I opened up this conversation. I won't go too deep on this, just so we can stay on track here. But I went through the IQ system. Like I said, I was extension 3-4 in maths at school. I went and studied accountancy at university. I did postgraduate in CPA studies. Mm-hmm. I did my financial advisor license. I did everything from a textbook and a schooling system or an education system you could possibly do.
Yep.
So I was really a master of financial literacy in its own right.
Yep.
And a story I tell often is at the age of 32, similar time to when we started to get together.
Yep.
I'd made like elite status. I was a partner of a very reputable firm, and at that point I was so fear driven and scarcity minded and limitingbeliefs.com that I had a bit of money. I left that firm to pursue my own dreams, and I stopped my dream purely because I didn't have the belief systems. I didn't have the emotions in check. I didn't have my thoughts in check. And so what that actually happened is it drove me back to employment. It drove me back to employment, not as a partner or an equity partner or anything like that. And that's when we started to get together, because I started to do my own journey around personal development, thought patterns, emotional checks, limiting beliefs, much more personal development or ascension than a local psychologist could teach you, right?
Yeah.
And through that, I started to build this mentality and power that it was like, I can do this myself. Mm-hmm. I know the numbers stuff. I know the financial stuff. I just got to get myself in check. Mm-hmm. And then when I did that, now fast forward 5 years, I'm in this position where I own 5 times more property than I did then. I had 1 property. I own 6 now. So that it's like in such a small amount of time, the business is growing in a big way. And not to gloat here, but what I'm trying to be able to articulate is I'm able to deal with a lot more fear. I'm able to deal with a lot more stress. I'm able to deal with a lot more of that because I've got the simple financial understanding in check, which anybody can have. Anybody can have.
Yep.
I'm in check. That's the biggest thing here.
Yep.
Is I can sit there and I can keep my emotions in check and go, what are we going to do about this situation? How are we going to guarantee a return? How are we going to see an increase in revenue? How are we going to make sure that, yes, we're still maximizing our costs to get the greatest investments? How can we make sure we're making good property decisions in a market that's currently undervalued so we can capitalize on it? So this is all about us.
Yes.
It's not about...
It's all about us, yes. And that's the, to clarify, and, that's what I love about our friendship and our relationship is it's really reciprocal in that way. I've as the money mindset side of things, the emotional intelligence per se, and the self-awareness, like as someone who's in that space as a professional, I've seen you grow leaps and bounds. So I can attest to everything you say. I trusted you right from the start just because of your literacy and just your everything, the demeanor, the energy. I could feel it all. It was right there. There was one thing that was missing, and it was that. And I'm so happy to see that like thriving right now and still growing. Like that's the thing, it's still growing. So I love that we have that.
It's growing, and thank you for the kindness, and it's all of us growing, because at the end of the day, I'm scared right now. Like, and I'd be lying if I sat here and I said I wasn't, because we've made business decisions as of late, and I've made property decisions with my wife as of late, which have fear and scare and scarcity mindsets attached to them. But that's okay.
But it's a relationship to the fear that's changed.
Exactly. It's not letting the fear control the state. It's not letting fear control the outcome.
Sure.
It's letting the financial literacy, and this is readily available. You can come and speak to you and get financial literacy. Come and speak to me, get financial literacy. You can infill the knowledge you don't have like that. It's everywhere, okay? You can have great people surrounded by you to infill that, but it's how you stay at peace with yourself and work on those limiting thoughts, those limiting emotions, those fears that are holding you back and hurting you, that some of which we acquire from our parents, okay? And go, no, I'm gonna shine a light on those things, and I'm gonna start to tweak it, so that we can take. Like they say, on the other side of fear, there's great stuff. We don't have to go and jump off a roof, but we can take calculated, fearful steps if we know they're for fulfilling reasons.
And it's the two-way street of money IQ and money EQ is that strategy helps to a certain degree.
Yes.
Money mindset is like the money mindset, emotional intelligence of money, and of yourself, because it's all linked. That is the bedrock to a sound wealth creation journey.
Of course it is.
Wealth creation, but also keeping wealth. A lot of people, find that challenging as well too, they don't understand the distinction between money and wealth. I want to ask you, and feel free to always take me to the next level or to challenge what I say, but money isn't wealth. Money is a means to transact wealth or exchange energy. Right back from, with the human species isn't a new thing. And there was, at the end of the day, it goes, trade is just part of what we do. When there are people together, there are economies, and we need to trade between each other. That's not going to change. Sure, there are economic cycles, and there are certain things with fiat where we exchange with notes, but at the end of the day, that is not wealth. That is just money. It's a means to exchange value, where we assign money, where we assign value. Essentially, we exchange that value with each other. All right, whether it be for goods, services, etc., etc. Wealth is a totally different pool. Okay, but it's correlated. There's a correlation, just like there is a correlation between money EQ and money IQ.
Of course.
So let's talk about the differentiation and maybe how people can start to get their head around the game. Just like we're just saying, there's actually simple strategies that work the best, and they're timeless. It's not something new. There's a lot of complications around this area, but how do we start to talk about the difference between money and wealth, and how does someone who might be realizing that they might be struggling, or they might be even thinking outside the box when it comes to their own economics in these challenging times right now?
Yeah, so I think firstly to differentiate between money and wealth, and this is from what I see in my perspective, money is a transaction. It's a commodity. It's something that, and there's different types of money almost. There's money, there's now cryptocurrency, there's I'll sell you this for that. It depends, but it's an exchange, okay, for something of value for something else of value.
We're going to leave cryptocurrency to the side.
Yeah, look, that's a sensitive topic for everyone right now. Wealth is by definition whatever you see of value, of meaning, of how you want to live your life. And so wealth is so open-ended, like
so subjective.
It is subjective and it's individualized. So,
and talking, I want to cut you off. We'll come back onto that, but before we lose that point, like that subjective nature of wealth, the same thing that prongs people to think they're not wealthy, their head might be thinking, okay, purely looking at their finance, how much money do they have? How much money do they have? And their mental assumption, their perspective is shaped purely around money.
And you ask the question to that same person when they're 90 years of age and you say, did you live a wealthy life? I bet you they say no.
No. So some people, I worked with multiple $1 million clients, people that handle a lot more money than me. And the funny thing is they come see me for things that money can't provide. That is the broader picture of wealth.
It's back to this EQ again, right?
No amount of this is back to the EQ. No amount of money will ever substitute for that place in you that can rest in who you are and can enjoy freedom to do the things you really want to do.
Chance.
Being with your family. So I've got a new baby on the way, and 6 weeks out from that, I can't wait to spend time,
yes,
as much as I want to.
Yes,
and that when I think about my core values and I think about what wealth is to me, that is a wealthy thing that I can do. I can live where I want to on the beach. That does require money.
Yep.
But I have the time freedom and the self-belief to understand that the value I have inside of me, which is an emotional thing, means that I am of service and value to other people, which allows me to relax and set good systems around myself, my money, and my profession, and what I do as a leader. And then when it comes time to prioritize and to strategize on where my time, energy, and money is best spent, I can make wealthy decisions. Yes, you have to have money to be able to do that, and you need to be well leveraged. But it isn't just about money. When you have skills, or you believe inherently that you have value to deliver to society, and you become skillful enough to be able to deliver that, hopefully very easily. It's not complex. It's a very easy way to do it. Like, you start to afford more freedom, time, energy, and money.
There's an irony in this, okay? And I think we have to point this out, because I think just to go back a little bit to the scare and the fear.
Yep.
Okay, what we do with scare and fear is we associate money. We have to work really hard, right?
Ooh, it's a big one.
Work hard, grind it out, go to university, go to after university, do everything, grind it out, make the money. Then, just like your client, it's make money, make money, make money, make money, make money.
Yep.
And then it gets to this point, and it's like, I've got the money, but I don't have the EQ or the fulfillment or the meaning. And then it goes back in cycle to, I should just do something that I really want to do, that I love doing, that also makes money. When, if we went full circle back to the beginning again, wherever you're sitting listening to this, it's almost like, work out what wealth means to me.
Bingo.
Work out what I'm doing right now that makes me joyous. Work out where my passion or happiness comes from. Work out how that also simultaneously makes me money where I'm not constrained by normal society and systemization, which means I actually have to work 6 days a week at 70 hours a week, right? And I can create a wealth model. And I think the thing that you and I have bounced back a lot on, which we both are very, very similar on and very much on the same page from our own sort of coaching of each other conversations,
sure,
is that you and I both want to influence a lot of people at scale. We don't want to be constrained by time to a normal work week.
Yep.
We want to make a lot of money and invest that in different vehicles like property, etc. And we want to live on our terms.
Yep.
And anybody can have that. It's how they construct it.
Absolutely. I'm just in the process now of actually getting, so part of my my work I do is really helping people get clear on obviously themselves, which is an emotional thing. We are creatures of emotion. Every single decision we make, we make decisions emotionally and we justify them logically. So whenever we have a driving emotion and we have this sense that if something's impelling us to make movement, that's what emotion does. Emotion impels movement forward. If we're really, really emotional, we're going to be really chaotic. But if we're too up top and we hold the reins too tightly of the horse, the proverbial horse, what happens is we get really stuck in our ways. So it's a delicate balance between not holding the reins too tightly, but also letting the horse get into a bit of a gallop. Mm-hmm. So with that, with understanding, when we study ourselves, when we study our relationship to ourselves, we are also studying our money story. There's something I want to share to you guys, and I hope this is of value to you, is this is directly from my vision planner off my website, the Prosperity Vision Planner. I'll reread it to you and talk about a couple of areas about the full picture of wealth. So the concept of wealth is subjective. It largely depends on one's perception and measure of value. Money in society is a means to exchange that value, but the objective point of this vision planner that I'm talking about is to consider what money can't offer us, okay? So security, no amount of money you have, and you see this from the top tier guys that are billionaires. I love Tom Bilyeu talking about this. He says that no amount of money ever substitutes from, no one can touch that place in him that feels like he can be himself. So no amount of money you have, the world's going to continue to be uncertain. No amount of money is ever going to close that gap between certainty in yourself and the world. Power. People often confuse money with power. Money in itself is not a source of power, okay? True power lies in our relationships and our capacity to create new realities together. We the people have the power. And that's what's changing right now. We're seeing this in this economic trend and the cycles that are playing out. Institutions are losing their power. Governments are losing trust. The power is returning to people, and trust between people, is at an all-time high. People's bullshit detectors are also at an all-time high. They can tell what's wrong from right now. And that really talks to us about the dynamic between power and money. Significance. Money does not prove your worth. Your worth is an inside job. You must decide that you are worthy and significant and work with that. So work with the subconscious stuff that, that we need to look at that actually unconsciously rules the show for us. And no one else is ever going to be able to convince that. I can't say to you, Ryan, like you're so significant, you're so worthy of creating a lot of wealth and a lot of impact in the world. I can tell you that, but that's just not how it works.
Can I see a funny story? So I relate to every part of that. So I had a mentor, back to my story again, when I had all that subconscious stuff going on of limiting beliefs and fear and scare and just wanting to not do anything, right? Even though I was super financially literate.
Yep.
A mentor told me that. A mentor said to me, Ryan, you're letting fear control the game here. Ryan, this is an inside job. Ryan, and you know what I did?
What?
I didn't listen to him. I just fully disregard. And I was like, yeah, right, like even though he was practically a billionaire. And I just didn't listen. And anyway, because I didn't listen and I had to go back to being employed again, which is just so far back the other way, not because of my financial IQ, but because of my EQ, I worked for him and then 6 months later I go, yeah, you were right. You were right. And that's how I unraveled the belief system with him, because he had done the work 2 years prior.
Okay.
And then I went on the journey.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'll never forget is opening a book which we've spoken about before, Think and Grow Rich, which on a certain page it says,
Hill.
What you think is what you get.
What a timeless.
Subconsciously, what you think and feel, you get. So if I think and feel fear, I'm going to get more of that, and I'm going to get more of what I fear.
One of the most profound takeaways for me from that book was about the subconscious. Like, in terms of what I've mastered is understanding the subconscious and helping people map the subconscious, and to be able to discern more clearly right from wrong, or insight from wisdom, all this stuff. So when we understand the self, it's a journey of self-mastery, essentially. But what I love about that book particularly is Napoleon Hill's perspective on the subconscious. He says that the subconscious plays this role of auto-suggestion. It will suggest things to you so subliminally, so unconsciously, that it will rule the show. But we think up top, no, we've got control. It'll be right. This is the thing. People turn a blind eye to a lot of what actually is happening. We can't overlook this in wealth. We truly can't overlook this in wealth. Think and Grow Rich really points to this. It really gives us it gives us a great foundation to understand how the dynamics of money and ourselves interrelate and work together.
It is absolutely the conduit between IQ and EQ, because like I said, I got to this certain page. I think it's 164 keeps coming up in my head. I was laying there at night with Lara next to me, my wife, and I was reading the book, and I like, there's something in this book, right? I'm sitting there, I'm back employed on my group certificate, right? I've sold my property. I have no property at that point. So I went from one to none. Sorry, I didn't tell that before. I'm sitting there and it goes, there is this thing called a subconscious, and it is 95% in control of your life. Absolutely. It is built from everything that you've ever learnt, from whoever you've ever spoken to, from your parents, and you name it. And you will sit there and some mentor or even yourself will say, I'm in control, I'm going to change. But then this thing that weighs 95% of the strength goes, no, you're not going anywhere until you do the work. Yep. And you start to think and feel and see differently. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that was that pinnacle moment that shifted and went, wow, I'm holding myself back. I'm holding myself back. And no matter how much education I have or money understanding I have, I'm going to sit right here and go backwards unless I start addressing these emotions, these thought patterns, and start shifting them to more positive light, positive perspective, positive outcomes, outside the box thinking, not just the scarcity stuff that keeps you stuck.
And this is the epicenter. This is the gold right now. We're in the gold of the conversation.
The golden podcast.
The golden podcast. So we're in the gold right now, and this is something that I don't just want listeners to go, okay, that's a great conversation. I want them to go, well, what can I take away from this, and how? Because the how provides the means to actually create change. I can't give you your why for creating that change, but I can give you the how, and the how is the powerful part. When we feel like we have a system or something we can head towards, we gain power. So part of gaining that financial literacy and also the competence and the confidence with money is looking into these parts of ourselves. I've got a saying, it's something I've just got back from another meditation retreat where we sit for days on end and all we do is meditate. All the shit comes up. I go to parts of myself that I don't think about. And in that, you really learn that you can't have the light without understanding and working through the dark. Meaning that you need to study the patterns, the tendencies, the beliefs, the traits that you're aware of that are creating limitation on your life. It's a very hard thing to do for ourselves because our own self-image, our ego is in the way. So practices like meditation are really profound and useful for that, and journaling to understand the story, the narrative. But I really suggest, and this is why I do what I do with my life's work, you have to work with someone outside of yourself. Just like I invest in a coach, I invest in you. I have people outside of me that show me my blind spots and are able to help me discern from, okay, you think that this is not a play. Let's study it a bit deeper, and you understand there's a root system here that travels down into a belief, an inherent belief that you're holding on to. And that's something that I really studied when that $50,000 was stolen from me. Wow, okay. And this is how I really actually helped take my story of not just my life, but also my money story to the next level and earn a lot more very quickly after, was that, okay, this experience that is happening for me with money has left me feeling like I've been opened up, and I felt really unsafe. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own house. I'd been violated. I felt like, and also there's a lot of gray area. It never got solved, this case, but there's a lot of gray area around who did that. It had to have been someone I knew. So there's a level of betrayal. What the world will always produce to you and mirror back to you, like these circumstances, events, situations that happen in our life, some of them are up by, they're just sporadic and they might have less meaning, but the world will always reflect back to you your state of being. Of course it will. And it will give you the lessons you need to evolve. That's why, even though I was hurt by the situation, I was laughing the next day. I had a chat with Ben Collette. We went for a walk, and he's like, one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen from you, Dan, is the day after that robbery happened, you laughed about it and you said, I'm going to use this. This is funny.
You said the same thing to me.
Did I?
You said this is going to be a cracker story one day. You said it the day after.
Yeah.
We're talking about it.
That is the mindset you must go to. I'm not saying it's easy. Like, there was a part of me that was really fucking hurt and feeling the full punch of it. But then there's also a part of me that's quite stoic and goes, let's use this. And it helped me really remodel that story of myself.
But your EQ allowed you to do that.
Bingo.
If you had not had the EQ work, if you had not done the subconscious magnifying glass sort of stuff on that, right?
Yeah.
Your IQ would not have allowed you to do that. No. And you would have spiraled.
Yeah.
And you would have it would have been a loss of probably $500,000 by the time you'd finished, right?
Bingo. Because we chased that. There's now that sense of identity and that sense of safety has been taken from me. What do I do now? And that's what happens in the gambling cycle. I put money in and I don't get that back. Okay, now I've got to chase that. What are you chasing and what are you running away from? You're running away from yourself, and you're running away from that sense of safety and security in yourself. You're looking outside of yourself for answers that are actually internal problem. No amount of money and no idea of happiness that you can find in the world will ever replace that sense of safety and freedom in yourself. And that's why it's inside job. Like, what we see in the world, we actually inherently see in ourselves as well on a deeply unconscious level. So using that event, I felt a sense of fear, doubt, insecurity. I didn't fully have my feet on the ground, so I wasn't grounded in my own energy, my own self. I was walking on eggshells, something that I experienced in childhood as well too. Not just at home, but also like just with other people. I wasn't safe. I was people pleasing. I'd abandoned myself. So it makes all the sense at this event, you know, as I was calling in the next level of wealth, we had a meeting booked to talk about that, literally to invest. And then it was taken from me. What a great lesson. What a hurtful lesson, but what a great lesson for that to happen. And then what actually happened and transpired was that I then was able to work on the story, the EQ. Then that created, because of my skill and my ability to help other people, I'm always remunerated for that amount of value I bring to their lives. So then start to talk about investment, and then I'm investing really well within the year, you know, making even greater returns. And now I'm in a place where it's like there's a level of competence, everything's come full circle. And I still get those prongs and those things that go, oh, I'd love to have, you know, I love to have that. But then that's the EQ. You have to pull yourself out of that, because if you hold that frame of I'm hurt, I'm a victim, and my economics are in a downward spiral, you're going to see that in the world. Start coming back to what we spoke about at the start of the conversation. There's two types of people in these economic times where everything contracts and people get squeezed. They're squeezed of their resources. They're squeezed of lots of different things, and it creates pressure and tension. Like that's actually what the system does. It creates pressure and tension on people through economic downturn, and then suddenly everyone's like at their wits' end. They're drained of resources, and then boom, the market turns and everything goes up. And then that's when those people that saw opportunity in those downturns become wealthy, because they've known where to put the money. They've known how to hold their frame and hold themselves emotionally, and then they've been able to leverage that.
You couldn't have said it better yourself. And that's the thing that
I might go and get my financial credentials and go to uni.
Look, you've got the EQ credentials, so the IQ should be a breeze for you, mate. As long as you keep it simple, that's what I always say.
I'll stay in my lane.
Keep it simple. But look, you couldn't have articulated that better yourself. Like you really couldn't have, because that's what I've seen, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about it. I saw when COVID happened, which is a hard, erratic time for the whole world. This, without going into detail on it, the cryptocurrency thing happened, right? And the property thing happened, because crypto went up, property went up, people had more spending because they were at home, and insanity happened. Everyone went and bought. Like, that was the conversation. And this was 2 years ago, give or take, right?
And the funny thing about that is, like, when I went to crypto, we doubled out, like, the people I brought with me.
Sure.
You were one of those people. I was telling you all about it. Remember how I was driving into you? And I made over 60% returns on that.
Yeah.
It was a crazy time. That's so interesting how it's changed.
And now 2 years later, give or take, it's the opposite. We're in recession. Property markets have declined, give or take, they're stabilizing. Crypto declined really bad. Now it's starting to stabilize and even come up as well. But the general mindset of the world is that don't spend any money, don't go near property, interest rates are rising as a cause of the recession. Cryptocurrency was the stupidest thing to ever hit the market. This is what the assumption is, right? There is an irony in both, that all this speculation and all this insanity is driven by what we started this conversation with, which is fear, okay? Because a current affair does it, because 7 News does it, because everyone does it. And we're kind of like a sheep world, where if one person says fear, everyone else starts mirroring the fear back, and it turns into this cycle of fear. I'm not trying to gloat again, but I'm trying to use case examples, so I'm not just talking theoretically. I bought a property that's literally 100 meters from this property that we're sitting and doing this podcast, right? And I bought it 6 months ago when everybody, all these guys that know what they're talking about, that are financial gurus, said don't buy right now, interest rates are rising. I copped the interest rate rise on the chin, and it was 7.5%, which is quite excessive, right? But I also just got told by the real estate agent, who isn't just a real estate agent, there's a buyer's agent as well. So there's a team I use, that it's gone up by 200K. So
in 6 months.
In 6 months. And then when I developed the property, it would have gone up by $500,000 in addition to that 200K. So financial literacy was simple. It was like, yes, I'm happy to cop a bit of extra interest, but because the property was getting fire sold because someone was driven by fear. So again, this is an IQ, EQ understanding of circumstances, and usually
wealth will run away from you if you let it.
Yes.
And you can't listen to people. Like, that's the thing. You cannot listen to, in these economic positions, you really need to take stock of who you listen to and who you're around. We saw this in the crypto market. Everyone bands together, and when there's a bull market, which is the uptrend of the market, everything comes out. Everyone thinks they've found the magic ticket. I went through that.
And even on that cycle right now, everyone, and I'm generalizing, I shouldn't say everyone, majority of people right now,
I'd say 85, 90%.
Majority of people did that then, and majority of people right now will say cryptocurrency is the worst investment that you could have ever made. I lost X on it, okay?
Yep.
But the irony is, if you go and look at the cryptocurrency charts right now, it's doing what other investments like property and shares have done historically, which is it's starting to come back now, which means the long-term trend is give or take going to be the same. So if you played a more mindful, emotional, long-term game on it, didn't throw your whole house on it initially, but just invested conservatively, you're going to get a great return.
And this is the dollar cost average effect, right?
Yeah.
So rather than lump summing when you think it's the right time to buy, like you create a dollar cost average strategy just to bank off the Google. I really love Ray Dalio. I really love even Raoul Paul. I love the dollar cost average approach. Raoul Paul's big on this, is the dollar cost average approach. Yes, we quote unquote want to hit the right time to put a lot of money into the bottom, but unless you're the person who is running the system, you're not going to find that bottom. It's almost impossible.
And then you've got again a lot of the market, or at least some of the market, that when I did dollar cost average through cryptocurrency, though, I did do that, and it's like, you did it for 6 months. Yeah. I'm talking about dollar cost averaging into an investment and putting small sums into that investment for 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
That's where you get investment returns. If it was stocks, cryptos, etc. we're talking about. Same applies to property. Don't go buy a property like I just did and expect to sell it in 6 months and get a great return, because the reality is that property might go down again. But then in 6 years, because I bought when everyone else was running scared, might be worth double.
Yeah, I've got a thing, is like, there's a friend of mine who, he's another coach, but also, handles multiple figures, 7 figures when it comes to investing in crypto. And he, I watch what he says. I really agree with what he says around, you can't take advice off people, like, because don't take advice off people who aren't doing what you want to do. But he also said, what I also see as well is, what's the best way to frame this? When it comes back to investing in that dollar cost average approach, the people you want to spend time with and you want to listen to or maybe build a relationship with, if you're going to start to think about your wealth and money, it requires discernment, look to people who are thinking in blocks of 5, 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
Not these people who sell the NFT and the project. Like, look at it. So the things
couldn't agree more.
Someone said to me the other day, Dan, how do you feel about the project you put 6 figures into? That it's down 90%, and I go, I feel fine. They're like, how? Like, you in their frame of mind, which is not wrong. Like, I'm in the hole. Their frame of mind is, okay, he's invested this thing, he's at a loss. I understand, I've done research on the company. It's not just a cryptocurrency, it's a tech company. I understand its use case. I understand how they're getting their patents, who's on the board. I understand the project, the fundamentals, and also the essential posture of the company. It's speculative still, but it's also safe. It's something I am truly convicted in. It doesn't matter what happens on this micro level. On the macro, I know exactly where that project's going. And I can predict that outcome. Coming back to what you said around people saying you shouldn't buy a house at a certain time, I had that same voice when I went to go buy my property. When I first invested that property, I remember people saying it's a silly time to buy it. Don't buy it. Now I'm sitting at my investment has doubled.
And the same thing with that property I just mentioned. I had a property advisor buy that for me.
Yep.
Because I can know a lot about finance and numbers and money, but at the end of the day, I'm not a real estate agent.
Yeah.
So I just paid him an amount of money to go get a really good deal on the property whilst it was going down fast.
Yep.
And that was a smart play. And another point as well, Ray Dalio that you mentioned before, and this is an important thing to talk about, is his methodology is like, go put your money, dollar cost average, so regular installments, into an index fund that returns 10% each year for over a 10-year trajectory, and keep it simple. And so whether you're buying property or you're buying into index funds or share funds, they're called, a bunch of shares, just do the simple stuff. Because the simple stuff has been proven over like hundreds of years.
And I think that's the important part you say there, Ryan, is this, it's not actually a complex, coming back to what you said around IQ, it's actually not it's not as complicated as what it seems and what people are making it. And these things, what is bringing the complexity is the emotional side.
Yes.
It's the fear, doubt, insecurity. It's
the hype.
Yeah. It's FOMO. Because what don't I know? What am I missing out on because of this?
That is the hardest complicated stuff. As soon as you have COVID happen and the crypto market goes crazy, trying to get an understanding around that is the complicated stuff that most people should stay clear of. They should just deploy a long-term play based on things that have always worked. That's where the complexity lies, the fear lies, the scarcity lies, all of that lies, all the emotion lies, which is, don't play the game, play the long play. You know, use the first world principles that have worked for hundreds of years, and don't try and do everything in a day.
Yeah. What's Ray Dalio's book? Is it Principles?
There's a couple.
Yeah, there's a couple. Even a resource. Type into YouTube, Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. You'll understand this on a much bigger scale from a man who is a master.
And I can't remember the title of...
He's proved himself to be an absolute master.
Of course. And Warren Buffett says the same thing, you know, like a lot of the property gurus say the same thing. But if you look at Ray Dalio, he actually, he built like an A3 book 12 months ago for kids. And I went and read it. I thought, this is great. And I read it, and it actually has the best principles in it to just invest your money properly and have a life by design where you have your own time, you have your own freedom, you do what you love to do, and you find ways for that to make really good money so you can live the life of meaning.
I think that's what we all long for, Ryan. But people have their heads on, people think in their heads, I need to make a fuckload of money so I can live a life by design.
It never happens.
Yeah. Or
it happens at 90.
Exactly. Or I need to get there before I can be happy and I can be wealthy. No. This is the lie we're sold. A lot of people think soul conditioner story. A lot of people live their life, waiting for that quote unquote the day when they can retire and enjoy life. This is the lie we're sold, right? And this is where you got to start thinking. It's also tied to working smarter, not harder. Retirement happens when you make a decision, like we're alluding to right here. We're sort of framing up for you. Retirement happens when you stop trading an imaginary tomorrow for a day right now that is already whole and complete in itself. Now you're retired. Now from the present moment, you're able to best analyze, best understand, best truly listen and ground yourself into what is going to create you and afford you the luxury of time, energy, and money freedom.
I think there's nothing better to get great clarity and answers than to ask great questions. I've always been a believer of that. You just asked a great question. I think another great question always starts with if, and it's, if I retired today, what would I need to do? You'd be surprised at what it feeds back to.
I'll keep coming back.
Because I ask myself that question every day. I'm like, if I retired today, what would I need to do? And what always comes up for me,
such a good question,
is invest in property.
Say that one more time.
If I was to retire today,
yes,
what would I need to do? That's it. Like, it's not a complicated question. You know what always comes up for me?
Well,
invest in more property, know how to invest in property, make sure it's calculated and it has a return, because then I'm not exchanging time for money. The property does all the heavy lifting, okay? And as long as I'm hanging around people that I love to hang around, I'm living a retired life anyway. It's not rocket science stuff.
Ooh.
And I do that every day before I get up, because the mind or the ego, like you said, the mentality goes, or the hardworking systemization that we condition through society to do, goes, work hard, I got to get up, doing my emails, do all this crazy stuff, have all these sales, do this. And then if you ask the right questions to get to the root of your soul and you go, well, what I need to do to retire today, doing what I love to do with who I love to do it with, it'll just feed you back reality and clarity. And then,
so that's you asking. We ask the same question in a different way. So that question is linked to the IQ of money. My emotional, self-reflective question,
and meaning and desire and passion, yeah.
My self-reflective question I ask myself. I literally did it 2 days ago. Sat there at a cafe and did it myself. What is enough? What is enough? In all domains of my life, what is enough? In the domain of wealth, in the domain of relationships, in the domain of health, my happiness, what is enough? What is enough for me? And I think a lot of people walk through life without defining that enoughness. So of course they're going to look in the world for that validity or that opportunity. The world's not going to reflect it back to them because there's something missing inherently in themselves, because they haven't defined and they haven't gone to that place in themselves to go, this is enough.
Yeah.
And it's linked to gratitude. Money loves gratitude. Money loves the attitude of gratitude. When you flex that muscle, what you appreciate appreciates. And if you can't appreciate what you have right now, then what business do you have getting more?
Yeah, it happened like back to that circumstance again with business, because we've invested so deeply. Like as of late, every morning I wake up, and sometimes I wake up that scared, fearful guy. I do, right? I'd be lying if I said I didn't. And I go, what am I grateful for? And family's always at the top of the list, right? My healthy kids, my wife Lara is like, health is more important to wealth for me, which is ironic, right? Like health and wealth go together, but I say,
well, if you haven't got health, you've got no wealth.
And that to me is real wealth, right? It's health and happiness. So if they're all good, and I have a great team, and I have great business partners, and I have great property, and I'm very lucky for all of that, then I reframe my thinking or my feeling to be that of scare and fear to more like excitement and joy. And then that shifts what I attract in and the results I get.
Yeah.
So I think back to what we've spoken about is that subconscious stuff, that programming, that conditioning from how we grew up, unfortunately holds 95% of the weight and the holdback and the feeling like you're imprisoned and you're not going anywhere. So as soon as you make a desire to go, how do I want to retire now? How could I retire now? And you come up with these great insights, just know that your current system is working against that. Yep. But if you start to unravel it and work in with it, you completely shift your position.
That is so powerful. And that's the gift of it. Now, on the back of that, we're coming close to the end. We said we want to do under an hour. We're going to go just above. That's okay. I'm going to offer, would you like me to take you through an exercise that I use to teach money EQ?
As long as it's not what I got made to do on stage the other week, which was to pretty much do like this really unusual, I couldn't even comprehend what this NLP master practitioner made me do, but it was uncomfortable. Don't make me uncomfortable, mate. Go for it.
Okay.
Do whatever you want.
I actually think you'll be fine with this, and it's actually an exercise that. So I'll preface it with I had this client. I'm going to keep her nameless, but she's a great lady. Wanted to move into the service space, the service business space for people, but she could not see that she had such a negative. She actually wanted to be seen as such a good person that she wasn't actually seeing herself, meaning that money couldn't see her, money couldn't flow to her and flow through her and work for her. And rather than me presenting, trying to tell her what's actually going on, I took it upon myself to teach her through an exercise. It's not the exercise I'm going to give to you, but I'm going to preface this exercise with this understanding, right? So I said to her, I leant over and I took out my wallet, and I think it was a $20 note, or maybe, $20 note. And I said, I want you to have this. And she's like, no, that's your money. I can't take it. And I said, but I actually want you to have this. I genuinely want to give this to you, and I want you to be able to receive this from me. And the wall, the story, it went for a minute, 2 minutes of just no, and then a story, no, layers of condition around just take my money. Like this isn't me saying, please, I want to help you. It's just like, I want to give this to you. Can you please receive it? And she couldn't, because inherently in herself, she did not have that sense of worthiness and also the ability to receive it. A lot of people don't have that. Their container for receiving things is so held. It's so, people have this, so up top, people have this idea, I want to earn this much money. So their wealth container in their head is this big, okay? But their internal emotional self, their container to hold that money and to feel worthy and feel like they have the systems in place to receive that, it's like here. So that's where a lot of people go into the mental prison, is they have this idea of wealth out here. And this is what I've fell victim to many times in my life. Oh, I've got to make $1 million out here. But then internally, emotionally, I don't have the capacity to hold that. So what we need to do in our work, in our in the emotional side of money, is expand our capacity emotionally to be able to hold that same idea intellectually. And that's the bridge between IQ and EQ. Would you agree?
Couldn't agree more. I do it regularly. Like, I'll sit there and I go, like, the businesses, these aren't numbers. These are general. I'm just making these numbers up, right? If we're at a couple of million, right, and I want to get to, I'll exaggerate the figures a little bit. I want to get to a $50 million business. Okay, I want to get to a $50 million business. That's the level I'm hitting. Naturally, inside me, I go, can't happen, won't happen. You haven't done that before. You haven't seen that before. You haven't hung around people like that. 50 million's out of reach. That's all the baggage of the subconscious that is in me, because I haven't seen and experienced, and I've been playing at a couple of million level. But if I work through that, if I was to get to a $50 million business, what would need to happen? I need to have better advisors myself, better coaches. I would need to be mindful of where I focus my time controlling this business and how to level up. You start to infill all the BS in the system to go, okay, now this is exciting.
Yeah, exciting, exactly. It changes the energy. You go from an attitude of,
which is the EQ.
Yeah, you go from an energy of fear and how is it going to, they get bogged down in how. No, what does that person do? Like, who is that person?
Yes.
Yeah, there's vision of it. Yeah, there's vision at the top of the hierarchy, the pyramid. Vision, the what? It might be a proverbial $1 million. How am I going to do that? You start thinking about that. They get stuck there because they don't change the who. They don't change that, the emotional person, the person holding that capacity. Because that's all confidence is. Like, confidence in this space is, money loves confidence. Confidence is actually the precursor to confidence is confidence.
Sure.
So we've got to expand our confidence. Let's do this. We're coming close to the end now. Let's do this. Let's do this drill. So we're going to take a really short break, and I'm going to press pause, because I have to actually go get something that's going to teach you this lesson.
Okay.
You up for it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.